Live from the beautiful hills of Ibiakuran. A very good evening to you, and today on Worldview, Ukraine and Russia have signed a deal in Istanbul today to reopen Ukraine's Black Sea ports and release Ukrainian grain exports. According to Turkey, some of the measures adopted in the agreement in a moment. An end in Sri Lanka's leadership crisis is yet to be cited, as army and police personnel today dismantled tents and assaulted protesters at the demonstrators' campsite near the presidential palace in Colombo. Emergency purchasing power bill has been passed by the French Hung Parliament. The €20 billion package is intended to assist low-income families struggling with inflation. Details of these stories and more in a moment. First on Worldview today, nearly 2 months of tough negotiations, Ukrainian and Russian officials have signed the Black Sea ports deal at a ceremony in Istanbul's Dolmahig Palace in the presence of UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. One of the measures negotiated by the two sides is the establishment of a coordination and monitoring center in Istanbul to be staffed by UN, Turkish, Russian and Ukrainian officials, which would control grain exports. An inspection of ships carrying grain was a Russian condition to ensure vessels would not simultaneously deliver weapons to Ukraine. Russians and Ukrainians also committed to respecting shipping lanes free of military activity in the Black Sea, with the meaning to be carried out by a third country where required. The agreement is signed for 4 months to be automatically renewed. After news of the deal emerged, the price of wheat reportedly fell on global markets. Meanwhile, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has praised the grain export deal agreed to by Russia and Ukraine, saying the move will offer relief to the world. At a ceremony in Istanbul, Guterres described the event as a beacon on the Black Sea, a beacon of hope, a beacon of possibility, and a beacon of relief in a world that needs it more than ever. He added that he was thankful for Turkey's facilitation and persistence in helping to broker the deal, saying Ankara's role had been essential through every step of the process.
We have seen a critical step forward to ensuring the safe and secure export of Ukrainian food products through the Black Sea. In a world darkened by global crisis, today at last we have a ray of hope. A ray of hope to ease human suffering and alleviate hunger around the world. A ray of hope to support developing countries and the most vulnerable people. A ray of hope to bring a measure of...
In the meantime, the governor of Russia's central bank, Elvira Nabiullina, says Moscow will not supply oil to countries that decide to impose a price cap on the commodity. Nabiullina told a briefing that the proposal by G7 nations, which is aimed at stripping Russia of energy revenues, would also spur on global oil prices. She said the proposal was intended to limit Russia's options for financing its offensive in Ukraine. In a related development, Russia has increased its use of air defense missiles in a secondary ground attack mode because of critical shortages of dedicated ground attack missiles. This is according to the latest British military intelligence assessment. British Ministry of Defense said Moscow had almost certainly deployed strategic air defense systems designed to shoot down aircraft and missiles at long ranges from the start of the invasion. It said the weapons have relatively small warheads and are designed to destroy aircraft. The ministry added that the weapons could pose a significant threat against troops in the open and light buildings, but are unlikely to penetrate hardened structures. Still on the crisis in Ukraine, the United States believe that Russia's military is sustaining hundreds of casualties a day in its war in Ukraine, including having lost thousands of lieutenants and captains in total. A senior U.S. defense official stated this today. The official said the United States also believed that Ukraine had destroyed more than 100 high-value Russian targets inside Ukraine, including command posts, ammunition depots, and air defense sites. Elsewhere, senior Sri Lankan lawmaker Dinesh Gunawardena has been sworn in today as the new Prime Minister. His office confirmed this a day after the swearing in of a new president as the Indian Ocean nation grapples with its worst economic crisis in decades. The event came hours after security forces raided a protest camp on government grounds in the main city of Colombo and cleared part of it with at least 9 arrests as the new administration moves to crack down on protesters. A former minister from the Podujana Peramuna party, Gunawardena, took the oath of office in the presence of Wickramasinghe, seated in front of uniformed military officers in a room packed with lawmakers and officials. The rest of the cabinet is expected to be sworn in later on. Meanwhile, security forces in Sri Lanka have raided the main anti-government protest camp in the capital early today, arresting protesters and dismantling tents. Hundreds of troops and police commandos moved on the protesters outside the presidential offices in Colombo hours before they were due to leave the area. A video journalist was allegedly beaten by the army, and one soldier snatched his phone and deleted videos. 9 people, including 2 who are injured, have been arrested by police. It comes as Ranil Wickramasinghe was sworn in as president yesterday after ex-president Gotabaya Rajapaksa fled the country last week. Away from that, Italy's President Sergio Mattarella has dissolved parliament, triggering a snap election hours after Prime Minister Mario Draghi handed in his resignation amid a split in his ruling coalition. Italy's government crumbled on Wednesday when 3 of Draghi's main partners snubbed a confidence vote he had called to try to end divisions and renew their fractious alliance. Draghi, an unelected former central banker who has led a broad coalition for almost 18 months, tendered his resignation yesterday in a meeting with Mattarella. He had tried to reassert his authority as parties began to pull in different directions before the planned end of the legislature in the first half of next year. In another development, European Union's executive arm has launched 4 new legal procedures against the United Kingdom after the British Parliament's lower house cleared a bill to scrap some of the rules governing post-Brexit trading arrangements for Northern Ireland. The European Commission, which oversees EU-UK relations, said the UK's unwillingness to engage in meaningful discussions on the protocol governing those trading arrangements and the House of Commons passage of the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill undermined the spirit of cooperation. This brings to 7 the number of infringement procedures the Commission has launched over what it sees as Britain's failure to respect Northern Ireland trade aspects of the Brexit divorce agreed by both sides. The procedures could result in the European Court of Justice imposing fines, although this would likely not happen for at least a year. London has proposed scrapping some checks on goods from the rest of the UK arriving in the British province and challenged the role of the court to decide on parts of the post-Brexit arrangement agreed by the 2 sides. The Commission's 4 new legal procedures do not relate to Britain's new plans, but to its accusation that Britain has not implemented the protocol. Now, chief of the International Atomic Energy Agency says Iran's nuclear program is galloping ahead and that the agency has limited visibility on what is happening. Grossi made the remark while fielding questions from a Spanish newspaper journalist today. In June, Iran reportedly began removing essentially all the agency's monitoring equipment, installed under its 2015 nuclear deal with world powers. Grossi said that the time this could deal a fatal blow to chances of reviving the deal following 2018's pullout by the United States. He said in June there was a window of just 3 to 4 weeks to restore at least some of the monitoring that was being scrapped before the agency lost the ability to piece together Iran's most important nuclear activities. European Central Bank has joined steps already taken by other major central banks to target galloping inflation by raising interest rates by a larger than expected amount. We will bring you details of this and more right after the break. To stay with us.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abuse. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered
we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria, legally speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Many thanks for staying tuned. Let's head on now to the United States, where a congressional inquiry has heard that former President Donald Trump watched last year's Capitol riot on TV at the White House, ignoring his children and aides who begged him to rebuke the mob. One of two Republicans on the Democratic-led committee, Adam Kinzinger, said Trump had chosen not to act. The primetime hearing was told that Trump did not place a single call to law enforcement or national security staff. The inquiry alleged that the former president was motivated by his selfish desire to stay in power. Still in the U.S., an ex-policeman, Thomas Lane, has been jailed for 2.5 years for violating the civil rights of George Floyd, whose 2020 Minneapolis death led to protests. Lane, who was one of the officers who tried to arrest Floyd, was sentenced following a conviction in February. Lane, a white man, was found guilty of showing deliberate indifference to the medical needs of Floyd, a 46-year-old black man. Federal prosecutors had called for Lane to face more than 5 years in prison, but his lawyers had asked for just over 2 years on the grounds that Lane had suggested pushing Floyd onto his side and had attempted to resuscitate him. After the sentencing, one of George Floyd's brothers, Philonis Floyd, described it as terrible and said the whole criminal system needed to be torn down and rebuilt. In a separate development, France's divided parliament has passed the first major piece of legislation since elections last month, green-lighting a €20 billion package to help low-income families struggling with inflation. The emergency purchasing power bill passed with 341 members of parliament in favor, 116 against, and 21 abstentions. It includes a range of measures designed to help consumers, such as extending fuel tax cuts, raising pensions and benefits, and capping rent increases. The legislation also gives the government power to tackle a looming energy crisis caused by fallout from Russia's military operation in Ukraine. In business, German energy company Uniper has received €15 billion in guarantees and equity after the government stepped in to save the gas importer that is the biggest casualty of Europe's energy crisis so far. The state bailout caps weeks of intense negotiations between Germany and Finland, which controls Uniper's majority shareholder Fortum. It provides a lifeline after calling Russian gas supplies drained the company's finances. As part of the deal, the German government will take a 30% stake in Uniper. Fortum will end up holding 56% in Uniper, down from about 80% currently. Still in business, European Central Bank has raised interest rates by more than expected as concerns about runaway inflation trumped growth considerations, even while the Eurozone economy reels from the impact of Russia's war in Ukraine. The ECB raised its benchmark deposit rate by 50 basis points to 0%, breaking its own guidance for a 25 basis point move as it joined global peers in jacking up borrowing costs. It was the Eurozone Central Bank's first rate hike for 11 years. Policymakers also agreed to provide extra help for the 19-country currency bloc's more indebted nations, among them Italy, with a new bond purchase scheme intended to cap the rise in their borrowing costs and so limit financial fragmentation. Ending an 8-year experiment with negative interest rates, the ECB lifted its main refinancing rate to 0.50% and promised more hikes possibly as soon as its September 8 meeting. At a news conference, ECB President Christine Lagarde fielded repeated questions about how the ECB came to diverge from its original plans for tightening and how the new yield capping tool fitted into its core inflation fighting mandate. And with that, we come to an end of the package we have for you today on Worldview. Do ensure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtv.ng. You have been watching Spectrum TV, Worldview on Spectrum TV. Do enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.
Nigerian police force, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigeria police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the matters counsel is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is
my
this
lord.
an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
A knowledge of global businesses, economic activities, a new wave of the stock market, forex market, cryptocurrencies, and NFTs creates new dynamics towards emerging market millionaires and billionaires. From the dot-com era to the oil booms, the fundamental news drives the market. This is Business 360, taking you to the business around the globe. Join us from 11:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. weekdays, exclusive on Spectrum Television. Business 360, your prism to world businesses.